r/Askreddit by Reddit and chill. When did the class clown take it too far? He tried to pants the teacher. I think I've seen this porn. Someone in my year at school, who wanted to be a doctor, drank a bottle of antibacterial hand wash for $5. He did it because there is nothing bad in there, his words. Needless to say, he got his stomach pumped. I'm sure he gained valuable insights into his future career. One time the class clown asked what the teacher's wife, another teacher, was like in bed. It was so goddamn awkward. Better than your mother is the only acceptable answer. My high school class clown made a joke in a dead silent classroom about boning a teacher with another teacher in the room. His situation afterwards wasn't great. Still better than getting your stomach pumped. I knew a guy, high school student in the late 60s. He and his best friend were very close, but had also dated the same girl. My buddy dated this girl first. Now the friend was dating her. No problems. But they both understood how this could be perceived as a potential friendship ender. They had a joke all planned out. The best friend grabbed some ketchup packets from a fast food restaurant. After lunch, he was sitting in class with the packets torn slightly, tucked unnoticeably in his hand. My buddy had the starter pistol from the track and field team. You see where this is going? My buddy ran into the classroom and shouted, "You can't steal my girl from me. If I can't have her, no one can." He fired the starter pistol, filled with blanks, not bullets, in the direction of his best friend. The friend, who had jumped up from his desk during the shouting, clutched his chest from the fake bullet wound, sending horrifying streaks of red ketchup flying all over his white t-shirt. He collapsed. The look of horror on the face of every student in the room, my buddy said, was amazing. He and his best friend both got detention. Sometimes I think about this story, and I wonder what would happen if high school students tried this in a post-Columbine world. It's crazy how much times change in just a couple of generations. Yeah. In context of the time, that's actually a pretty great prank tbh. It just hasn't aged well. Ate a shit ton of notebook paper and ended up going home after he projectile vomited on the goddamn floor. Last week a guy in my class did the same thing. He ate some pieces of paper, like full pages, just because he could do it. His words. We're 18, dude. This one kid thought it would be funny to snort a line of that sour powder. This was no small line, mind you. I actually think he was rubbing it off the candy. Anyways, he does his line and instantly starts screaming. His nose was gushing blood and I honestly think he popped a blood vessel in his eye. Ran out of the room and later saw an ambulance come to the school. Don't do drugs. Did you go to school in Colorado? I had the exact same thing happen to my friend. Called our teacher's daughter, whose name is Mia Khalifa. The teacher then proceeded to search up Mia Khalifa in front of the whole class. Yeah, a teacher of mine said I don't know who that is in the most unconvincing way possible. He loaded up porn on someone's computer while they were in the bathroom. Teacher wasn't paying attention and the victim ended up getting suspended. That wasn't a class clown. That was a classroom hitman. When he yelled I lost my virginity to my dog during a quiet moment in class, every head whipped around to stare in horror. This is brilliant attention-seeking behavior. Where do you go from there? When I was in 3rd grade we were all doing our thing. Coloring, reading, etc. The class clown was being really noisy and kept goofing off. We were all having fun and the class clown eventually sat down. It wasn't long before he was laying on the floor, foaming out of his mouth, shaking violently. We all laughed. It was a joke, right? Before long the teacher came rushing over to see the new joke the kid came up with. She immediately called 911 and he was rushed out of the room. He had a seizure while the whole class thought he was joking. He recovered and everything was fine. I just feel bad for the kid. Holy duck, that's terrifying to imagine. Imagine saying help, I can't breathe, and your friends are just like haha. Good one. Then you pass out and shit goes down. Oh my god, that's freaky. pulled out a chair from underneath a kid thinking it would be really funny when the kid fell. The kid ended up falling and cracking his head open and getting around 30 stitches. I was going to tell this same story except the girl broke her tailbone when the chair was pulled. When he ate part of the squid we were dissecting. Stomach pump for you. Chuckles. Similar story when I was in middle school. We needed to dissect a perch. We were allowed to pick our own groups. But because I didn't have any friends in the class, I got stuck with the obnoxious kids. One of them had the genius idea of putting his mouth up to the fish's anus and sucking it like a straw. He ended up throwing up. Straight up just peed on the floor in the middle of class and convinced the teacher it was spilled water so he cleaned it up. Honestly not even class clown shit at that point. Just being a gross dong. He didn't get in nearly enough trouble. We had this one kid in our class in high school. I don't wanna call him weird. And I'm genuinely not sure if he had a disorder. But he spoke with a lisp and didn't seem to have many friends. Our interactions were few and, well, weird for lack of a better word. I don't mean the offensive weird. Just the objective not normal. The only vivid memory I have of him is being 2 seats away from him being asleep in class, and hearing a little sputtering noise and seeing his desk coated in water. Kid between us goes did you just throw up on the desk? He responds with no. It's just water. And then we just went about our day like nothing ever happened. Never wiped it up. Never questioned it. Just continued learning about whatever shit I was learning in that class. In a high school classroom with a chill teacher, someone made a joke about another kid's dong being small. So, that kid exposed himself in front of the whole class to prove that it was large. He got suspended. But was it though? Kid was always doing dumb stunts just to make people laugh. He got sick of climbing on in random things and jumping stairs one day and decided it'd be funny to smack into walls. His first few walls were fine as they were all concrete. There was a girl crying in the hallway and he figured he could make her laugh by making a funny face and tackling the glass door. He went through the door and needed stitches, leaving spatters of blood and broken glass on the way to the office. Did it make her laugh? A friend of mine made gestures of ducking the air in front of what he thought was an older student. Little did he know, it was a very young, new teacher. Kid, class clown, in elementary school made fun of a boy no one liked. He was kinda an a-hole, but one day the boy said his mom had a miscarriage and the other kid thought it would be a great insult later in the week to tell him something along the lines of your brother is better off dead, it's a good thing your mom had a miscarriage. Don't think we've ever rallied for this a-hole kid as hard as we did that day. Not cool. My friend's father took his own life when we were about 7 years old. A nasty boy in the class said I would kill myself. 2. If I was your dad. It was ducking awful. Kid in my band class still thought yo mama jokes were funny. We came back to school for the first time after Hurricane Sandy. And the kid goes to the teacher. Yo mama s and the teacher cut him off, died in the hurricane. The kid never told another one of those jokes in that class. So did the teacher's mother die in the hurricane or were they trying to shut him up? He yelled at my English teacher from across the room, your puns are more cancerous than girl's name. She was terminally ill with cancer and never came back to school after that day. Well, that's just awful for everyone. We had a teacher in middle school who had a wig and a glass eye. We had 3 class clowns that teamed up and at the end of the year, she left just because of their constant disruptions and bullying. I actually really liked her and always felt bad for her. Was this during the Triwizard tournament? Friend decided to shove his hands into my back pockets and grab my ass. Wasn't wearing a belt. Ended up panting me straight to the floor. I was wearing spandexy type underwear at the time. Caught those on the way down too and ended up like pulling it down to where my dong sprung out of them. What was bad was worse as our track coach had just walked in looking for me and she got a full frontal. Not to mention the class saw everything as well as I tried to pull my pants up only to realize my dong was out on full display. Didn't even get detention SMH. Big in it. Senior year. Teacher wouldn't give her a hall pass to use the bathroom, which was ridiculous. Instead of taking a more conventional stand, like walking out of the room, she sat down in her desk and pissed her pants. She was suspended. I forget for how long. There were editorials back and forth in the school paper. I was on team teachers shouldn't try to control our bowels, but also maybe don't piss on the floor. Though I do appreciate your taking one for the team. I remember a kid in my high school peed in the corner because the teacher said he wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom. He was completely upfront about it too. I'm going to the corner now. You sure I'm not allowed to leave? There was a class clown in my class and another one from the senior class at the time. They'd collaborated to throw toilet paper all over the schoolyard as a joke. I forget exactly what it was. But there was some kind of very important event going on that day and we were supposed to have a lot of visitors that afternoon. The principal was not amused. He said if they'd done that on any other day, he'd probably just let it go after making them clean it up. They got detention and one of the teachers made them personally apologize to the elderly janitor who had to clean that shit up in the dark when it was freezing cold. Edit. The janitor found the mess when he'd gotten to school that morning while it was still dark around 6 AM or so. He started cleaning it up himself. Before anyone knew who did it. The office pulled the footage from the outdoor security cameras later that morning. Because it was such a small school, those dudes were identified in about 30 seconds. LMAO. The most important part of a joke. Timing. Somebody in my botany class decided to blow up the AC in the room with a firecracker. It sucked because if they hadn't I would have been done with my finals a week earlier. When he torched a classmate with a lighter and EO spray, the guy still has scars from it. Edit. Sorry, I didn't mean torched his whole body. Just his hair, which is where he still has scars. I'm a teacher. A female colleague told her class about how she was going to spend the holidays resting in her bed. A kid said loudly, "You can I join?" Silence. When our science teacher went into the lab closet and he blocked the door with a filing cabinet. Then later in the year he got caught as he was about to put baby oil on the floor. Edit. I mean the kid blocked the teacher inside the closet. I had my moments of class clonery. The only one I really regret all these years later was from middle school. My science teacher was telling us a story about dealing with bullies. Back in his day, some punks were messing with him and his friends and he confronted them. At some point in the exchange, he said something like, "Come with me anytime. I'm not hard to find." I'm paraphrasing. For some reason my dumb brain thought not hard to find. Easy to spot. So large that you can see him from anywhere. Looking for a laugh. I spoke up and said, "Why? Were you fat?" There was some muffled laughter. But all I really remember was the teacher topping almost mid-sentence. Staring daggers at me. Face red as hell. He stopped his story. Turned to his desk and told us curtly to just work on homework. He barely said anything the rest of the class. I felt like absolute shit. It didn't register to me that, yeah, maybe he struggled with his weight as a kid and that was part of the bullying. I really didn't imagine he was a fat kid or anything. It was just a play on the easy to find mental image. Duck. I apologized as best I could at the end of class. But it was tense. At the end of the year he actually awarded me a best science student award or something like that. You know how they'll do a bunch of student awards for attendance and other shit. I think the fact that he did that means he forgave me. But I still feel like a massive heel every time I think about that. Ouch. At least you apologized without being made to apologize. I'm sure he realized that you realized you were a dong. He farted loudly every single day in Mr. Jensen's social studies class. It got really old. Edit. This was 7th grade middle school. Edit. I lived in Minnesota at the time. In the early 90s. I teach middle school and 2 years ago I had a student that purposely farted to stink up the room. He was the only student I've had so far where I couldn't find any redeeming qualities in him. Junior year in high school in Algebra 2. The teacher was kind of a douche, so this one guy, let's call him Mike, would give him a hard time. This was a regular thing. And Mike would get kicked out of class for saying and doing some inappropriate stuff, but we all thought it was hilarious. One day, our teacher didn't show up to class. Word got around that his oldest son had died of a drug overdose and he had to take some personal time off. He didn't show back up until a week later and he looked really sullen and down. During class, Mike pulled out a can of Coca-Cola and started sipping it nonchalantly. Teacher had a strict no eating or drinking in class policy and Mike was aware of this. He told Mike to throw it away and step outside. Mike, the absolute ducking savage, says, "Look, I know you don't like Coke, but I'm sure your son did." Nobody laughed. Just silence. Some people didn't get it. The ones who did were just too shocked to say anything like me. Mike threw his drink away and walked out of the classroom while the teacher just sort of haphazardly continued his lesson, although we could tell Mike's comments ducked him up. My story is pretty similar. The teacher was one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Really upbeat and always wanted to help out. His son wound up getting bullied a lot and committed suicide. When he came back, our class clown made a really bad joke remark about how it was the teacher's fault that his son killed himself. Our teacher got up, walked over to the kid's desk and stopped. The kid tried to make another jab, but the guy pulled the kid out of his seat and started pummeling him and throwing him against anything he could see. Nobody in the class moved. Just watched as it happened and saw this snarky kid sobbing, bleeding and just getting destroyed. Our teacher stopped, walked out of the room, and we never saw him again. Apparently there were a bunch of lawsuits and the kid had to go to the hospital for a bunch of wounds. But it was definitely the most intense class I've been a part of. Ducking, like and subscribe.